Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm your host, Doug Smith, Oracle's Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships in Oracle's Global Partner Ecosystem. And today, I'll be chatting with leaders from Oracle, KPMG, and the Peloton Group to discuss latest trends and challenges in global supply chain management and offering insights into workforce management, visibility, agility, and sustainability to help you build and maintain a resilient supply chain. We're going to cover as much as possible during today's discussion, but we'll also open it up to the conversation, to Q&A with all of you. So be sure to use the comments to ask any questions you may have, and we'll get back to you, as many of you as possible. And if you don't have any questions, that's okay too. Feel free to use the comments to give us a shout out and let us know your thoughts on current supply chain trends and challenges. As I mentioned, today joining me are Ken Spigarelli from KPMG, Matthew Connor from Peloton Group, and my colleague here at Oracle, Terry Hiskey, who's in our supply chain management team. Let's dive straight into the discussion. If I look back over the last decade or more, from my perspective, I think it's been very easy for us to take great supply chain management for granted. And I don't, quite frankly, think that's a very controversial statement. But our collective experience over the last 3 years has changed this a bit. I think making it a more pressing and relevant topic than what organizations of all types and sizes have experienced for some time. So, let me kick it off. Whether they be the direct impact of the pandemic, the high market variability, both in demand and supply, increasing geopolitical risks, or even the new reporting requirements as a result of a focus on ESG, there clearly are a multitude of variables at play in a very dynamic environment. It's clear that now more than ever, organizations of all sizes are rethinking, or perhaps more appropriately, needing to rethink, how they can deliver at the highest level for those they serve. Our customers and clients turn to us and our firms as trusted business advisors and partners to help them navigate. And we're going to have a dialogue today with the three of you to really help understand some of the key issues, challenges, and trends and opportunities that this world presents. So with that context, Matthew, I'll probably kick off the discussion with you. But as a group, what are you hearing from your customers and clients? What questions are they asking?
Yeah, I think from a supply chain perspective, the last 3 years has probably been harder than the last 30 years of supply chain. That if we rewound the clock to March of 2020, I don't think anyone was going to see the explosive demand that we saw. And a lot of companies, as they moved to lean, they ran out of inventory, they couldn't deliver. Well, now we've seen this other switch where I think people sort of got that part worked out, started doing a little more nearshoring, expanded suppliers. Now we're seeing this other flip of, with inflation, how do I optimize my supply chain so that I can drive costs out of the supply chain? Because they're getting pressures from everywhere. It's not just, there's very few people right now who are able to just pass that on, but there's places where you don't have a choice. So I think I think it's a great time to be partnering with companies trying to solve these challenges right now. But I think it's definitely something that's changing every day.
Yeah, Matthew, I would agree. What we're seeing, and it's very interesting, is that we saw kind of an uptick 3 years ago with people, all of a sudden having to figure out not just, stoppages and goes in different places and having to adjust their supply chain. It's really interesting now because I think 3 years ago, our challenge was trying to build the vision around a smart supply chain and leveraging technology and having all of these technologies connected in all of the different touch points in the supply chain. Now, 3 years later, these companies are like, yes, I bought into that. I understand the need for that data. However, I have so much data now. I'm not even sure what's going on with my systems. I'm going to have to hire people to sort through it. I am looking for my providers to find me an easier solution now. Now that you sold me on the collection of all of this data, now tell me what I can do with it to really make an impact on my business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, right? I think one of the things that we do on a quarterly basis is hold a chief supply chain officer symposium, right? We get a bunch of peers together and they set the agenda, which is fantastic, right? So we help facilitate the conversation, but they set the agenda on the topics that most interest them. And as you can imagine, I think all the things that you're hitting on are certainly front and center. And if I look specifically at some key questions that they're asking us. You look at the disruption that's happened the last 3 years. They've made a lot of technology decisions. They've made a lot of data decisions. They've looked at what can I do to make my supply chain more flexible and resilient, right? All those things that we've been talking about for the last 3 years. And now they're asking very specific questions. And then how can I harness the power of the tools and the data that I've gone and asked for? How can I truly make better decisions now based on demand uncertainty that we're all causing in the market and how we buy products? They're asking us how are other companies achieving better predictability without, I guess, being overwhelmed by the data that they're faced with, right? So I'm sure we'll talk more about analytics and the power of some of the autonomous thinking that's out there. But I think these are pretty telling examples of what's keeping executives up at night as it relates to how can they continue to deliver on their brand promise, but do so in a profitable way and one that drives growth across their organizations.
That's great. I mean, all three of you are deeply engaged in technology, data science. Ken, I know something you were raising, AI, machine learning, and I think other technologies like blockchain probably have an opportunity to, are playing a role and have an even bigger opportunity in the future. I think you're also deeply aware in your work with clients and customers around some of the skills and capabilities that are required to take advantage of these tools. What are the best opportunities today to leverage technology to help with the challenges?
Yeah, great question. And even let's take a step back and look at the market, right, which is driving a lot of this need. And as far as the labor shortages that exist, job openings in the past, right, generally in the past couple of decades have generally peaked in that 3 to 5% range. And in the last 3 years, that hit an all-time high of just over 8%. You couple that with a rapid decline in unemployment that hit 3.6% over the last 3 years. We've created this massive gap in supply chain labor market. And you think about inflation and recession talk that certainly is front and center today, will have an impact on unemployment, certainly to a degree, but it's clear that the gap in the labor shortage will continue to persist going forward. And we're seeing companies starting to really look at a diverse set of initiatives that tackle this labor constraint, right? Both from a capacity and a cost perspective. So you kind of hit the nail right on the head as far as automation and AI and what companies are looking to do. And in our research, there's a couple of key areas that companies are betting on, specifically in tech, to help optimize labor in the long run. You look at how can I help automate some of the work, that my team is doing today. If we can automate, that's going to help reduce the actual requirement for labor. On the other hand of that, there's retention, right? How can I leverage AI and automation to better predict what's driving, attrition across my organization, right? Is it benefits? Is it hours? Is it quality of life? Right? All of these things that we see day in and day out that are causing employees to look elsewhere. Are we being challenged in the marketplace, right? So we're seeing companies now use AI and robotics to improve this capacity, right? With the attrition, it's helping predict where there's going to be attrition and how do I better retain workers. On the automation side, it's leveraging automation now to perform redundant activities and optimize the work that our employees and teams are doing in support of delivering on the function.
I don't know about you guys, but I will say in the last 2 months, I have had more discussions around AI than we have had in the last 5 years. And just, we're playing with that. And I'll call it one of the more exciting developments I've seen in enterprise tech recently.
I agree with you. And it's exciting for me, having been in this kind of supply chain and manufacturing area for a couple of decades, is to see this industry that, America's been built on, and and has gone on for hundreds of years, go through this resurgence now where, even 10 years ago, yeah, as Ken was talking about, we're losing more people, in the supply chain labor space and manufacturing as well, than are coming back into it. And frankly, it was because it didn't look like a fun space to be in. If you were graduating college, do you want to go to what, an old school kind of factory used to look like, or, do you want to do something cool and interesting? And, manufacturing, I think the industry and supply chain has taken a hard look, and it's like, we do need to modernize, not just because it's good for the business and because, we can squeeze that profitability out, but because we need to attract newer workers who want to work with cool technology like drones, like chat, like AI, like IoT connections and robots and things like that. And I think it's kind of that the onus is on us as kind of industry leaders and in leading these customers and into making sure that they're understanding, what do people coming into the labor force want to do, and introducing this new technology to them as something exciting and something for them to build on. In addition to the fact that you're going to get all these great, hopefully results across your supply chain. I think those working together are really, helping to fill that labor gap.
So we've got this really amazing environment with the new technologies coming in. Ken, you talked about the human capital. I think all of you touched on the human capital limitations that we're under. What are some of the other limitations and challenges? I know, Terry, you've been an advocate for, like, gosh, there's so much data now. What do we do with the data? But what are some of, just as you think more broadly, what are some of the limitations that our customers and clients, are facing?
Well, it's interesting because I think the limitations are, what I see is people trying to take too big of a bite out of a big project, and I think that when, a lot of companies, they get excited and they're like, okay, we're gonna, put IoT sensors on all of our machines so that we'll understand where something is from component to inventory to shipment, and this is great. But they don't go into it with a game plan of, what are the KPIs exactly you want to that you want to track? What do you want to improve? What's the time frame that you want them to improve? What's your baseline? It's kind of all the homework that you need to do before you start, on these implementations, and really understanding that you have to kind of put together a series of small victories to really get that big, big wave impact. And I think where a lot of companies get hung up is that they don't want to do the work between buying the software and then getting those big results. But you really have to, understand your business processes in order to understand how to improve them.
Yeah, all that stuff takes a bit of time in a very dynamic environment where time is the most precious commodity, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think one thing that we find with our customers, right, is that oftentimes they don't truly understand the problem, right? Is it a visibility problem? Is it that they don't have access to information that they need to make decisions? Is it that they have the access, but there's too much of the data to make sense of it? Is the data not organized in a way that allows them to really gain the insights that they need to drive, right, better decisions? Or is it a technology, right, decision or issue, right, where they don't have the right tech to help, right, bring all of the insights as well as the data together in a way that really drives value for the enterprise? And it could be all the above, right? But I think a lot of it's, truly understanding the problem domain. And as we all know, the end-to-end supply chain is massive, right? It's very wide and it's very deep in terms of the capabilities that companies are looking to harness and drive improvements in across their enterprises. And so truly understanding the problem is often a way that we've seen our customers fall short, right? And they need some guidance.
Well, I think about the more of the supply chain strategy. I think it's been so easy to get whipsawed. So how do you make sure your strategy is going to go through whatever ebbs and flows we're going to see that are impacting the broader market. So like, I think that's one of the things, as you know, on the technology side, and Ken and I from a partner side, is working together. Like, how do you build a sustainable supply chain strategy that leverages all pieces, the technology, the people, the change management, the data, to really give you something to work with?
Yeah, the only thing that's constant is the variability, right? So it's just planning for all of the situations.
Right. Well, it's interesting because, when we talk about supply chain, and I think that we often get very focused on the logistics side of things. But, when I think about variability now, it's also the the ordering experience, and the ways that you can buy product. And maybe, some companies are now looking at subscription models because those are more predictable and more sustainable when materials might be volatile. And so I think that, that sometimes you need to kind of look outside and, what's connecting you to the supply chain as well, to get those, bits of information that can really lead to those efficiencies.
So we've talked a lot about some of the challenges and a little bit on some of the opportunities with the technology. I'd be really curious from the three of you, like, what are some of the best practices? What are some of the, like, how are some of these limitations being overcome? What are some of the novel uses of technology, some new innovations, whether they be, process changes, system changes? But as you look across the various clients and customers that you've worked with, what's kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of give you some perspective, and we talked a few of the AI and robotics examples earlier, which I think is very emerging still, right? I think it's certainly front and center as far as, how do I manage labor capacity issues and use tech to do that, right? We talk about visibility, for how do I sense where my product is in the end-to-end supply chain, linking with ocean carriers, linking with my logistics carriers stateside, right? Having better connections with my suppliers. And so a lot of the IoT technology, geofencing, autonomous, right? We talk a lot about autonomous vehicles and robotics. Augmented reality would be another one, right? So those are a couple of innovative ways that our customers are looking at what is no longer emerging tech. It's tech that's readily available and almost outdated in some degrees.
I'd like to kind of hit on sustainability as a growing theme, and ESG across our customers. And it's interesting because it challenges me sometimes to think about all of the different things that you need to track to report sustainability. We have a customer in quick serve that, basically tracks the farms at which their produce is grown, and, the carbon footprint. What does it take to move that produce to the next processing center, and all of that? It just seems, I don't know, to me, sometimes it seems like, how can you possibly track all of this? Seems so crazy. But then to see, technology applied to that and to solve that, and to have, a customer at the other end, touting how they are sustainable and good for the environment, and knowing that, we have the technology to support that. That's really, I think it's just really cool when you kind of go outside the factory, and you think about the farms and, all of these areas, and really go all the way down the food chain. It's fascinating.
And I think there's still a lot of companies that have bullets that they haven't fired on. I'll call it like real value added, not complex. And like, look, I hear drones and I think drones are cool as heck, right? Like my son and I go fly it. But I also go like, look, do you have all your key trading partners on EDI, right? Are we getting that supplier collaboration? I think we have to do a job around, hey, here's this amazing platform and you've done this. What about if you do this? And what value does that bring? And help build out those roadmaps so people can continue to adopt and continue to evolve in the supply chain realm.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on a really important topic, right? And I think Terry mentioned it earlier, this idea of a strategy and a roadmap. And we talk oftentimes around layers of capability, and understanding kind of where you are as an organization across those layers of capability. As an example, right? We call it maybe the first layer at its core, a more descriptive layer, right? Or integration layer. It's all about having visibility to data. And we've talked a lot about data, and getting visibility and access to it is the first step in that process. But really having data that helps you answer the question of what, right, is happening across my supply chain, that to us is a foundational layer of capabilities that organizations need to have in a roadmap. When you think about different tech and data and process areas that they need to focus on, that is a layer of capability that's super important. The next layer is all about process and foundational tech, in my opinion, right? It's helping answer the questions of, not only how's my process performing, but also introduces capability to help organization answer the question on what may happen. So now we're thinking not so much just about descriptive data, it's now predictive data and predictive capabilities. You now start to think about adding on a layer of capability that brings in analytics, brings in partner performance measurements, collaborative processes, allows us to not only answer the what and what may happen, but also what's the impact of what's happening, why is it happening, and then if you go beyond that to, I think, where people are prescribing to, right, they're not quite there yet, as you mentioned, right, they've got to start at the foundational layer. It's now about, well, what should I do, and can you do it for me, that more autonomous or cognitive layer. And so I think having that roadmap of capabilities is super important. And organizations, as we all know, are at different levels of maturity across all of those levels. And so I think it's important to lay that roadmap out, develop a core base set of capabilities that you're striving for, really truly assess where you are and where you aspire to be, and then map out the course to get there. Super important.
Yeah.
Terry and Doug and Ken, I have a question though too. I think about all this proliferation of data, and one thing I have actually seen too, and I'm just interested if you're seeing out there, is I'll call it a lack of good governance around your data and supply chain. I think that, like, I was originally an accountant, and there's always really like a good governance structure there, but I think that's a huge opportunity for organizations, is to think of how are you going to govern all the data we're creating.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Matthew. There's a lot of, like I said, it's probably the thing that I hear mentioned the most is this just data proliferation and getting their arms around the data. And to Ken's point, with the right technologies, we're starting to see people move from the preventative side to the more prescriptive side and get ahead of issues. And that's, of course, what we all want, right? We want to get ahead of the bad weather and change suppliers at the last minute. And if you can kind of get ahead of those things with that visibility that these companies, are craving, then you can, I think that you can really make a difference to your business.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. I think with data, it's interesting, right? I think I've got now enough data and may not have the right capabilities to truly understand it, and we've talked a little bit about that. And then oftentimes when we're working with customers, specifically around, well, maybe more of those advanced planning. So think about demand and supply, S&OP, and so inventory optimization types of initiatives. They don't often have even the data to begin with to support the capabilities that they're acquiring. Right, or they don't have the policies in place to maintain an inventory policy at a tier 2 echelon distribution center, right, or a regional distribution center, or they don't have the right sourcing rules per se, right, to really manage a decision support tool that's going to help them make choices on which vendors to be buying product from based on capacities and lead times and ordering rules and things of that nature, right? So it's oftentimes they have too much data and don't have the tools to understand it, or they don't have the right data at all, and then certainly the governance behind it to maintain it in a way that mirrors what's the dynamic nature of the environments that they're in. This data often changes, right? And they don't have the back ends necessarily.
So we talked a bit about, there indeed are a lot of challenges here and now for so many of our customers and clients to overcome, and they're all at different life cycles along that. I have to take this opportunity with the three of you to get even more forward looking. I'm just really curious to your ideas. What do what is the future of supply chain management? Like what does that look like in the next, in the coming years? What most excites you about kind of the trends in this space?
Well, I think you're going to see wider adoption of these technologies, AI, machine learning. I mean, if you see anything around factories of the future, they may not have workers. It may just all be automated, and you have some shift workers there that kind of oversee the machines, but you may not have people on the line. I think that you're also going to see an environment, again, thinking about labor shortages, where processes are simplified at factories so that the process of bringing someone on board and training them will be shortened, if not completely replaced by an AI that, like a Siri type technology that may, walk workers through their duties day to day. So, I'm kind of excited that we are already starting to see bits and pieces of that. And I think that, moving forward, we're just going to see more of that.
Yeah, oftentimes we talk in terms of the future of supply chain, and that future's changed, quite often, right, in the last couple of years. But I think there have been some foundational elements of that still hold true for organizations looking to drive efficiencies and improve supply chain performance. One of those is utilizing their platforms more effectively, right? We've talked a lot about some of the options and the emerging technology available to customers, but broader than that, with the option to build, buy, partner, right? Companies must decide which of those capabilities are they retaining in-house, and which do they access via the extended marketplace, right? We've seen the Uberization of a lot of services, and that's starting to happen across supply chain as well. So I think that's an area that it's no longer just about what you're good at. It needs to be now about how do I extend those capabilities through knowledge and service partners. I think platforms is an area that is important. We talked a lot about talent, and I think winning the war on talent is going to be important for the roles that need to be filled with labor, right? And we talked a little bit about the AI and machine learning as an emerging capability within organizations. Those roles don't often exist in organizations today, right? So I think that's an area that companies now need to compete on. These customer journey architects, the roles are just changing, right? From supporting tech to supporting the customer centricity of a supply chain and that journey that we want our customers to go on when they're buying products from us. So I think that's changing the way that we're focused on talent. So I think those are a couple of key areas, and we hit on quite a few earlier in the discussion.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see the jobs that don't exist today. Like we're not even I don't think anybody here is grasping the jobs that may exist in 5 or 10 years in supply chain, right? So I think that's one thing that's really cool. I mean, at the end of the day, right, we're trying to get products, we're trying to get raw materials, transform them or regular materials, but it's that how that I think is a really exciting time to be alive and see that.
It's an interesting point, Matthew. I think some of our audience, maybe folks who are earlier in their career, and as experienced professionals in this space. I mean, is there advice that you would provide to audience members to say, hey, I'm really interested in this area of supply chain management. I'm really trying to grow. What are capabilities and skills and and knowledge that I need to grow to be prepared for the future?
Just say yes, right? Try and learn. Like be proactive on what you're looking for. And I mean, I tell people that all the time. If someone wants you to learn something new, just say yes, right? It may not be a direct route there, but if you can start to do that because you say yes, all of a sudden you're in a spot that you're on the cutting edge and people really need you. So I mean, I'll listen to everybody else, but that's how I've gotten where I've been in life.
That's some great advice, Matthew. I think also just, staying open to things. I think that things are changing, within society as well, with like the role of education. And I think that, that there's a role that trade schools can play in promoting this type of technology that maybe doesn't necessarily need a college education, but, I'd love to see like more apprenticeships and more kind of different routes to these types of jobs. But I love the say yes thing. I think the other thing I would just encourage somebody that is interested in supply chain is, again, don't focus on one area. Supply chain is big and vast and connects to a lot of different areas. So, take some time and learn about all of these different touch points, because it will kind of give you a bigger view.
Awesome. Well, I would like again to thank the three of you very, very much. It's been a fascinating discussion. Really enjoyed it, and you really are luminaries and wonderful thought leaders in this area. We've hit on so many interesting topics today, and thank you again for sharing those with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great, it was a pleasure to be here.
Happy to join today.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's event. Please use the link in the description of this event to learn more. And if you want more content just like this, make sure to give us a like, follow, or subscribe from wherever you're tuning in from.